what's going to happen today is I'm going to spend 10 minutes. Hi, I'm Brooke. I'm going to spend 10 minutes going through some data on what we're seeing across our portfolio of clients, because we're trying to provide value to anyone who's listening, and we want to be able to talk about the trends and just stress that none of us are in this alone. So we're going to approach what we're seeing in the current climate from a data viewpoint. And then Katie, you want to say a few words about what you'll be talking about afterwards to wrap this up?
Absolutely. So I'm going to take you guys through some ways that we're seeing brands thrive. Right now, we're seeing some really interesting things in how brands are really taking this moment to think about how they are operating in the world as larger citizens and doing that in a way that's meaningful to their consumers, that's going to put them in a position of strength coming out of this.
Great. So we're both going to share successful client stories and things we're seeing in these fast shifting times, I think is the easy way to put that. Okay, so I'm going to talk very briefly, got a clock on for myself, about who we are. I'm going to share some data from Google, and then I'm going to go into what we're seeing, which will be the bulk of this. Just so you know who we are a performance marketing agency in Midtown Manhattan. There's some of our staff up on the screen ahead of us, if those animations are working. We use search, social, reputation management, SEO, and email marketing with our 20 employees to help our about 40 clients. And our clients are well, before I get to that, I hope at some point you can come see us at our office on the 5th floor there, and we can have a beer downstairs at the Australian. So our clients are clustered into two verticals. One is higher education. About 40% of our clients are colleges or universities. Another 40% of our clients are emerging direct-to-consumer brands. And then another 20% are a basket of what's left over. And that could be financial, it could be B2B, it's mostly B2B. But we're gonna focus most today in the 10 or 15 minutes I have on EDU and on D2C. So before we get to that, we're a Google Premier Partner. So I'm gonna show you some data from Google. What that means is that frankly, we've jumped through hoops to get this designation from Google. And it means that we're one of the top 5% of unaffiliated agencies in the country. That means we get to share cool data and get you into cool programs ahead of time. We're also partners with Facebook. And so that's the end of the Mason stuff. This is from Google. This is Google's data, and I'm assuming you all can hear me, and back in the home office, you'll text me if you can't. This is Google's data on what happened during the Great Recession. So to the left of this vertical line is less, and to the right of the vertical line is more. And so what we're seeing is that in the Great Recession, people spend more on education. And we're seeing that now, and we'll get to that. People spend more on telephone and telefax equipment to stay in touch with people. Household appliances, maybe not. Holiday spending in the top, much less. So we're gonna show data that shows the same trend for our clients today that Google has from the Depression. So big purchases are put off, existing trends are accelerated, people are still innovating, people are going to retreat to in-home, and in a big issue here, we need to talk about price sensitivity. Consumer reaction, also from Google, consumer reaction to data, to the recession. The data shows that, and this is from 2001, 2008, people are only replacing things when they need them to, right? So you're not gonna get the new car today. You're not going to take your big trip today. You're probably not putting the addition on the house today. If you can do it yourself, you're going to do it yourself. 15% year-over-year searches from last year in the UK for searches about doing it yourself. So I think an example of that would be a makeup brand. People are probably going to buy makeup at home instead of going to the salon. People want to seek value. We are in a price-sensitive time. People are shopping smarter, and overall they're controlling spending. They are shopping, we'll talk about that, but people are postponing big purchases and controlling spending. So that's data from Google. The last thing about Google is that consumers will react to reduced incomes, which people are getting reduced. I think we all know people that have been laid off or furloughed. Consumers will react to reduced incomes or the threat of future reduction by shifting the retail mix, and they're going to increase the number of people that they see as consideration. So people used to look at 4 underwear brands before deciding, or 4 colleges before deciding. Maybe they'll look at 6 now. Maybe they'll look at 6 brands in each case. People are focused on price because all of us are seeking lower deals and everyday lower prices. And we need to focus on retention and adjust our marketing to capture increased consumer research. So let's talk specifically about how this translates to you. Again, I'm going to focus on our emerging D2C brands first, and then our EDU second. So this is all of our emerging D2C brands. And just to give you a sense of who this is Casio's, this is G-Shock watches. And this is Dagny Dover. And this is Gitman Vintage. And why is my Siri still going on up there? And this is Lumity, a skincare brand from the UK. So we're looking at Indie Lee. So it's a makeup brand here in the United States. We're looking at them and a whole bunch of others in a basket. And what we can see is that this is for direct to consumer only. This is customer acquisition costs versus impressions. Why does it keep doing that? This is customer acquisition costs versus impressions. Oh, stop it, Siri. Sorry, technical difficulties. Oh, that's so annoying. So what we see in blue, if I can get Siri to go, can I go ahead?
We can't see those.
Oh, good. That's great, because Siri's up on my screen giving me a lot of advice. Customer acquisition is in orange. And so what we see is the cost to acquire a new customer. I know this is a little fuzzy. We'll send these slides around later. The cost to acquire a new customer is roughly holding flat. There are fluctuations, right? We can see a downturn on the 15th. I think that's in the middle of the screen there. We can see a downturn in orange on the 25th. We're going to see that in EDU too. What we're seeing is that there are seasonal things that happen and things in the news that decrease the customer acquisition cost. But the reality is the cost per new customer acquisition in our emerging direct-to-consumer brands is largely holding steady. And impressions are up or flat, and we'll talk about that in more detail. So there are flat or declining impressions and a fixed customer acquisition cost. People aren't getting as many sales as they were 4 weeks ago, but we can use triggers with being sensitive to price to drive that trend. So that's D2C. I also want to talk about CPM. Just what CPM is the cost per thousand in advertising. So what you're paying per thousand impressions, and this really means Facebook and Google. So that's pink. It's a very clear downward trend, but there's no doubt that across our basket of clients that the cost per thousand they're paying for their ads is declining. It is a definite trend. It is a definite thing that's happening. More people are on their phones. More people are on their news feeds. Big brands like Coca-Cola just pulled out. Some of our clients have pulled out. And what that means is fewer advertisers, more eyeballs. That means the cost per thousand for advertising is cheaper. So we'll talk about what that means, but the reality is that it's cheaper now to get in front of new people than it was 2 weeks ago, than it was 3 weeks ago. Blue is conversion rate, the rate at which a click will change into someone buying something. It could be a purse, it could be makeup, it could be skincare, it could be eyeglasses, whatever it is. The average consumer the average client in our D2C basket has a declining CPM that went from around 12 to around 8, so it's around 25% down, and a conversion rate that also declined by about 33%. So if conversion rates were decreasing and the CPMs were flat, that would be disaster for our clients. That's not what's happening. What's happening is cost per thousand is going down while conversion rate's going down. It's tough. We are in a price-sensitive environment, but this is the data we're seeing across our basket of emerging direct-to-consumer brands. So the conclusion to this is that it's cheaper to get in front of new customers than it has been in a long time. That is just a fact. Conversion rates have dropped nearly 30%. The rate at which a visitor to your website takes out their credit card or their Apple Pay or their Amazon Pay and purchases have dropped. But CPMs have also dropped. And our clients' aggregate cost per acquisition is holding steady between $30 and $45. Obviously, some clients are seeing lower and some clients are seeing higher. This is our average basket of our clients. And so people are selling things, people are buying online. And the recommendations based on this data are to take advantage of these lower costs to stay in front of the consumer, to expect price sensitivity. I'll tell you right now that our clients who are offering sales are doing better than those who are not. That is the reality of where we are. You need to extend your customer lifetime value by offering subscriptions. Customers that are offering auto renew will ship you the next package for free next month. They are doing better than clients who are not. And this is an opportunity to stay in front of the consumer now at a reduced cost to win their loyalty later on. So that's my review of D2C. I'm going to skip ahead to EDU because that's the other thing that we have the most knowledge about. More or less, it's a different issue. So we're talking here. We have, I think, 15 clients we're managing paid social for right now to give you an idea for EDU. I'm talking about the CIA, I'm talking about the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, I'm talking about 13 or 14 other people. EDU is a little bit different trend. The CPMs in EDU are also in pink. The cost per thousand to advertise is also going down. That is a thing that's happening. The conversion rate is dropping not as precipitously. It still goes down the 25th, like the direct to consumers did. But we're seeing not as stark a trend here. And again, I will share this data with other people later. It's cost per lead versus impressions. So impressions, the number of ads that we're showing for our clients, and I should add also, this is just advertising. This is not organic traffic or email traffic. The impressions in light blue are up. There's no doubt more people are looking for education right now than they were 3 weeks ago. This is not a seasonal trend. This is antithetical to the seasonal trend. There are more impressions for schools right now. And that can be for day schools, it can be for private schools, it can be for preschools, it can be for universities, it can be for colleges, it can be for trade schools. There are more impressions in the universe. And cost per lead, so if D2C brands have cost per conversion or customer acquisition cost, the key metric for EDU is CPL, cost per lead. That number is fluctuating steadily. So the impressions are definitely up. And the cost per lead is holding steady in the $80 to $120 range. So this is the real data, right? So the EDU space is not seeing the same decline in CPMs. In fact, they may go up because this is a jam-packed space right now. Conversion percentage is holding steady between 2 and 1.5. Cost per thousands have degraded slightly but are flat. Impressions are increasing. So the suggestions for EDU are to take advantage of this demand. People are looking for your product. To be conscious of the student's financial status. Some clients are changing their landing pages to say, we understand that in these difficult times, you may need to qualify for financial aid. Let us help you with that. Clearly communicate your advantages. The clients we have that have been online for 5 years are just doing better than the clients that are just going online now. That is an advantage for those clients. Be prepared for increased demand. I remember, I've been doing this long enough. I remember after the dot-com bubble in 2001, I am that old. I remember after the economy tanking in 2008, there will be an increased demand for schools very shortly if we can tolerate a higher cost per lead value as that demand increases. So schools are thriving. This is my last slide. Schools are thriving, but there is an opportunity in direct-to-consumer. People are buying direct-to-consumer products. They're not buying them in the same number. We have to be price sensitive. We have to offer subscriptions and savings. They are buying. The market is volatile and it shifts daily, but there are trends to look at to inform your decisions. And we believe that it's important to continue to advertise now to use these trends to stay in front of the consumer, right? That's what we're doing with you today. We're not going to send everyone on this call a contract after this. This isn't a sales pitch. We're using this opportunity to share real data and be in front of people. And the consumers we have, the clients we have that are winning, they're focused on sales, they're focused on their bottom line, but they're also focused on using this time of super cheap CPMs to stay in front of people. And that is, I think, the last of my slides to pull that. Oh, there's Molly and Mira. Hi, guys. We'll see you in the office soon. I'm going to exit my screen. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to let Katie start sharing her slides. Katie, I'm not even going to tee you up because you do a better job at that than I do. And then we're going to take questions at the end of this. Does that sound like that's our plan?
That sounds great to me. I'm just going to figure out how to turn on my screen share, so bear with me.
It's great that we chose to use a brand new webinar software today, isn't it?
Great. I love it. I'm learning new things. Okay, let me move this to full screen because I think that's what's going to do the trick. How's that? Is that full screen, Brooke? Yet? Soon? I'm going to assume that that's a yes because I can't hear anything. So
yes, it's a full window. Yes.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys. So my name's Katie Klincheski. I'm the founder of SMAKK Studios. And a little bit about us. For the past decade, we've been focused on building brands that connect authentically with consumers. We work mostly in the consumer space. So we work with brands across the personal care, beauty, consumer lifestyle, fashion, and health and wellness industries. Some of the brands that we've worked with that you might know are Harry's Razors and the Honeypot company. And this is an interesting time for us. So we focus on building brands and helping them grow through marketing campaigns and content development. So we've really been thinking about, how can we use this moment to position our brands in the best possible way? And I want to take you through some of our thinking that we're using to really think about this as a time to build brand equity and carve out a unique position. So just in the past 10 years that we've been doing this at SMAKK, brand development has really changed. So going into this, we've really been sensing a change in the marketplace that started maybe 5 years ago and has really come to a head across the past 2 years. And that's the movement that's kind of pulling us into this moment that we're in right now, this crisis that we're in. And it really reflects consumer sensibility in a way that I think is going to be transformative in how we see brands working their way through this crisis and coming out of it. So when I say brand development has changed, what I mean by that is we're now in a place where we see 5,000 plus brand ads and images per day. And I even think a lot of the data that Brooke was just walking us through is showing us that we're probably seeing even more with people at home on their phones scrolling even more than they did just a month ago. So what that means is in the sea of brands, it takes a lot more to stand out than it used to. And towards that, we really see that brands are evolving. What once was a place where you could compete by talking about functional needs or delivering value or quality, that's definitely the old way of doing things. The crop of emerging D2C brands across the last 10 years proved that design and personality were enough to stand out from the pack for a little while. But what we've seen is that alone is not enough anymore. And what we're really seeing is that brands that embrace this idea of a higher purpose have been the brands that are starting to win the day. And that's been the sentiment going into this. And I also think that that's what's going to pull us out. One of the things that we know is that consumers, 69%, this actually skews a little higher as you go younger, in the US, are belief-driven buyers. What that means is they're looking for brands that align with their values. So thinking about how that's changing right now, we've seen that brands that connect with consumers' values are winning. And before the crisis, consumers proved that they want products that choose the products that they choose to have a positive impact on our planet, build communities, drive social change, foster inclusion, and meaningfully enable self-expression. And what that means is they're really showing up for that in the marketplace. So, coming into this, there was a recent study that showed that brands that are marketing sustainability are seeing 5x growth over conventionally marketed products in their categories. We're also seeing that millennials and Gen Z really want to work for brands that are saying that they that are trying to make the world a better place. And in fact, just last year, a roundtable of CEOs came together and said that Milton Friedman's edict that shareholder value is the only thing that matters is no longer what should be driving corporations' decisions. And so that's been kind of the building movement. And I think that as we're seeing how brands need to change in the world today, we're going to be looking for brands that are going to restore our sense of community, restore our sense of humanity, and help us heal from this moment. And so towards that, at SMAKK, we've always really looked at how we can build brands for what's next. And so we think that to win right now, we need to take on today's issues with solutions for the future and create meaningful relationships with consumers. So how do we do that? We really think that the success of any brand depends on its ability to own its unique white space and its cultural moment. So we look at the DNA of the brand, its competitive space, the brand audience, and then the cultural landscape when we're really thinking about positioning a brand. And right now, brands have this unprecedented opportunity to connect emotionally with their audiences. The reason this matters is that people have a really strong sense of memory to things that they have an emotional connection with. Maya Angelou says this very poetically, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. But science also tells us that when we have heightened emotional stimuli, we remember things much better. Emotions at the time we perceive and process an observation affect the encoding of that information into memory. And this is why you probably remember a lot about the time and place that you had your first kiss, but you probably don't remember the room that you took your SATs in very well. So what this means is that right now, in this time that we all are having these very heightened emotions, this is a time when we can do things as brands that are going to build us a tremendous amount of brand equity, because we are doing things at a time that people will remember us for our actions. And this is definitely where brands that lead are going to emerge in a position of power and be better positioned to engage with their audiences after this. But to do this, we really need to speak to this moment and put values and purpose in service of our audience's needs. So it's not a moment just to sell, it's really a moment to engage and connect. Before we act, it's really important to be clear on your foundational why. So when we work with brands, we really spend a lot of time articulating what is our purpose, what are our values, how does that inform the products that we create, and what does that mean for our position in the market. We really think about it that if we understand the core of what a brand is, that should inform every action, every interaction, every reaction that that brand has across every channel that they have. And I think going into this, if you don't know as a brand exactly what your purpose is and what your values are, you won't be able to act in a way that's going to be authentic and connecting with your consumers. So once you have this, then you can start to look at how this manifests across personality, storytelling, the visual aspects of your brand, and how that works across your different channels. But without that core, it's really difficult to act in a way that's going to be authentic to consumers. And there's a real difference between brands that are paying lip service to this crisis and actually acting in a meaningful, memorable way that is going to buy them brand equity for years to come. So I wanted to share some examples of some brands that are creating points of connection and stories that matter right now. I definitely wanted to share kind of like a high-low version of this, because I think it's really easy to write off a very large brand and say, okay, they have a lot of resources or a larger platform. But there's brands that are doing this at kind of every corner and doing it really well in a way that is going to create points of connection. It's growing their followership. It's giving them a platform that they'll be able to activate once the crisis is over. And during this crisis to really motivate their consumers and audiences to action. So the first example that I wanted to share is actually Christian Siriano and his brand. One of the first things that he did as the rest of the fashion world was kind of grappling with the fact that they weren't going to have the next fashion week and they were likely going to miss a season, was to actually reach out to Governor Cuomo and say that he had people who were available to work from home and sew masks. Which, I think is a huge move, and he's changing the narrative here. This could have been a moment where he's saying, you know what, there's no red carpet looks to talk about right now. There's no red carpet events, so our account should go silent. But instead, he looked at what was going on in the situation and moved his team into action. And so, through that, you can see their social feed became all about this action that they were doing, putting their team in service of this opportunity to volunteer. And they definitely saw a huge uptick in engagement. They started taking donations on christiansiriano.com. And this is not an example of a brand that was aware that they weren't going to be able to kind of engage in commerce at this moment. So instead, they looked at how they could act in service of the moment. And this is something that's going to buy them just a lot of consideration for years to come. They have people who became fans of the brand through this moment. And again, it's really easy to say, okay, this is somebody who's a reality TV star. They have a global brand. They have resources at their disposal. What if you're a brand that is potentially in crisis or is going into a moment where maybe you're not coming up from a position of power? So I wanted to share what my local pizza parlor is doing. Vinnys Brooklyn is around the corner from me. They've been around for 60 years. And I use them as an example because they're small and everything they do is actually very homegrown. And it's done in a way that they're actually taking advantage of this moment to engage, but they're not doing this at the cost of doing business. So the first thing they did was expand their delivery zone, which is just a really smart tactical move. Then they started realizing that they could support parents in an interesting way. So this is kind of an amazing innovation that they did, where they took their pizza component parts and turned it into a pizza making kit that you would deliver to your home. So they're no longer even putting pizzas in the oven and still charging for it. And this got a ton of engagement for them. They're a small brand. They've got 3,000 likes. That's crazy. And then they realized that people wanted contactless pickup. So they populated their pizza window with puppets, which was just another way of kind of infusing humor into the situation. And then from there, they actually did something amazing where they are allowing people to donate pizzas to first responders and essential workers in the neighborhood. And I think that this is a really outstanding example of a brand that's engaging in a way that's meaningful without kind of undermining their business model. So to donate a pizza, I would buy a pizza and then put donate in the instructions. They're using the same platform that they use for ordering normally. They're still putting their people to work. They're still making pizzas. They're still making money on those pizzas, but then they're allowing the people that are fans of their brand to give back to their community. So I think this is an amazing, just food for thought, literal food, just to think about and how your brand might be able to do something that's giving back or doing something larger in the community that might be completely outside of the box of what you would consider your normal business model, but maybe isn't at great cost to you to kind of change how you're thinking and how you're thinking about how your brand can be an actor in this situation. And just some examples of what this looks like across their feed, which I think is really beautiful. They've delivered, looks like dozens or hundreds of pizzas at this point. So really beautiful way to support a small community and bring people together. And so I want to share some examples of how we're doing this with some of our brands. One of the brands that we work with is the Honeypot company. They really always put themselves in service of women and doing the right thing by women, or we call them vagina havers. And one of the organizations that they've always supported is We Are Happy Period, or Happy Period, which gives period products or menstrual products to women in need. And so they're using their platform of a couple 100,000 people just to shine a light on this group that needs a little bit more help. Bea is the founder of the Honeypot, so she's going to be live there. We're using the social platform to feature this, and then we're using their social platform also to solicit donations for this cause. So this is something that we're doing. You can see there's nothing salesy about this. There's nothing here that's really about selling the Honeypot products, but it's showing how this brand can show up for the community and how we can use our platform, knowing that as a brand we've collected so many followers over the years. How can we put that in service of what this moment needs? Another example of how we're kind of connecting with consumer needs comes from our client, MD Solar Sciences. And we're really thinking about how we can use our digital channels just to support the emotional state that a lot of people are in. So instead of using our email marketing just to kind of feature products, we've departed from our complete, our spring campaigns to move into talking directly to consumers and trying to support them in their homes, giving them opportunities to think about self-care, de-stressing, and really created new campaigns that are just about how we can support those people and show up for them. And I think that every brand can look deep at what you have to offer and really think about what are some things that we can give back, what are some ways that we can show up for our audience, what is the state that our audience is likely in a way that can give them something that is tangible and feels like it's emotionally connected to what they need right now. And just to kind of wrap up, I think it's really important to be really clear. Last month's campaign is not going to work today. The core of who you are as a brand should not change, but what you are putting out into the world absolutely needs to change in light of what's going on. And, for a lot of brands, for us included, we had things like photo shoots planned, and we had, all of our spring campaigns had to kind of be thrown out or rethought just to make sure that we're really being sensitive to the moment. And so we've had to get creative about how we're thinking about creating content. So I just want to walk you through a couple of the strategies that we're finding to be really helpful for that. First, we're really embracing solo content creators. So we're no longer doing our big campaign shoots that we had planned for the spring, because those productions just aren't feasible right now with social distancing. So we're really embracing solo content creators. We have a number of photographers that we work with that have home studios who are able to put together amazing content on a smaller scale. We're also working a lot with influencers. It's a great opportunity to send product to influencers who are at home just like everyone else, and show how those influencers would engage with your product. Especially when we think about, parents home with kids, how does your product kind of live in that space, and how can you add moments of delight or moments of support into what's happening at home right now? We're also really encouraging our brands to break the fourth wall. So this is a great time to really show people what's behind your company, and also to be okay with it being a little bit rough around the edges. This isn't a time that we want super slick, super finessed brands. This is a time that you can have a letter directly from the founder. You can feature employees. You can talk about some of the business problems that you're trying to solve, because, I think we're all going through this together, and everything from delays in shipping to actual issues that people are having with employees that might be in crisis or needing help, or talking back to what you can do in community are really relevant. And that's what's connecting us right now. As we're kind of losing our social connections in the real world, we're moving into social media to kind of fill in those gaps. And brands have just as much real estate in our social feeds, if not more. And the way that we connect with people in these moments and really kind of allow for authenticity is going to be what defines us and what makes this moment different than what's come before. And then lastly, it really is a time to be real and to show up as humans and to recognize people behind brands and to connect in ways that are authentic. And I think that we're going to see a lot of content creation. We're certainly working on campaigns right now that are really about featuring real humans and, making meaningful content that isn't just a slick campaign, because we need to be authentic to connect and really seize this moment and come out of it in a place where we are building more than brands. We're building connections with our consumers. Great. So I think that's what I have here. And I think I'll go back to the screen where I can see Brooke, so we can start to take some questions.
Yeah, I'm so confused by this brand new platform we're using. I don't want to ruin everything. So Katie, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, so we've got some questions in the chat, and by the way, I've got people writing me in the side saying how wonderful you are, Katie. So you're a big hit. So someone asked, I'm going to answer this first, and I think Katie will follow up. I think what you guys will hear and all the questions that you can put in the chat, we want to hear from them. I think what you're going to hear is that Katie and I are going to answer these same questions in different ways, and I think it's illustrative because we're a performance-focused firm and she's more of a creative-focused firm, so it's going to be interesting for me to hear this. Justin asked, if you had a young startup D2C brand, what would be the 3 things that you would do right now, knowing that income has dropped by 99% and cash flow is not there to be throwing at ads, can't get into a studio for more content, et cetera? So I'm going to just answer this briefly, and then I think Katie will probably have a better answer. So Katie, can you see that question in the chat?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Great. So my guidance to you would be to reach out to a series of micro influencers. They're at home too. And if you can find, God forbid, you could find 40 micro influencers with small followings across different demographics that like your product, they're at home and want to have these conversations too. And that takes sweat equity in your part, and it doesn't take cash equity for the most part, if you do that right. Also, if you can't afford ad dollars, I think you can probably afford $500. I don't know who you are, and I don't want to be callous about it, but you can probably decide to define on social media your most targeted group of people. I don't know what you sell, but you can probably slice and dice it so you get the most seriously, surgically targeted ads you can get, and you can spend a couple $100s a month staying in front of people. I don't want to be callous, but I think there's probably some value to that. Justin says yes to that question. And the last thing about the creative is I would really say to be honest, and Katie's going to talk more about this, but so we do for our content, we usually do huge productions at Google and Facebook with 200 people and lights. And what we're doing now instead are very casual Zoom meetings when we're all at home drinking beers. So the reality is we can't be in giant ballrooms doing big events right now. We have to, at this point in time, be honest about what we can do and our capabilities, and that means Zoom, and that's okay. Everyone else is in the same spot. So I would reach out to micro-influencers. I would spend a small amount of money targeting people, and I would be very creative and honest in my content.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, definitely feeding product to influencers is an easy way to get out to a new channel. I would also just try to think about being creative. Like, don't discount the fact that doing something good will come back to you. I mean, I know it sounds like very woo-woo karma to say that, but the brands that are actually looking at how can I be a part of the solution here are actually getting rewarded by that. And so I think it's a great time to look at things like brand partnerships. Are there brands that you could work with where maybe you could put together something that, is a gift to people who are working in hospitals, or you could do a giveaway where part of the giveaway is, for X number of signups on an email list, you are giving back in some way, or, banding together with an influencer to do something good. I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of get creative about, what you can be putting into the world to get more kind of attention and eyeballs on what you're doing, and also just win some of that that brand equity that comes from doing good and reaching out and connecting with people in a way that really brings up emotion for them.
Thanks, Justin. All of our contact information is going to be available afterwards. Georgia, is discounting a luxury skincare brand right now a bad idea? I don't know your brand. My sister works at Shiseido in Paris, so we talk about this all the time. I think you have to. I think we are in a discount environment. I think the reality is that people are looking for savings and people are looking for subscriptions. Do I think you should have a bargain basement sale where you panic and drop all the costs by 90%? No, I do not. Of course not. But I do think that and Katie might have a stronger feeling against this, what I'm saying, and I think it's valuable to hear her opinion. But I think the reality is that consumers are in a price conscious place right now. Less so for makeup and less so for health. So you could discount less. I would probably ask you to, if you were my client, I'd probably ask you before you discounted to focus on a subscription. But maybe you get 10% off or 30% off the first order if you agreed to buy a bottle on a subscription every month for the next 6 months, right? So I'm giving value. Oh, hi, Georgia Louise. Hi, I remember you. How are you doing? So that would be my guidance to you. You don't want a deep discount right now, but the reality is that we are in a price sensitive environment. Katie, do you have any feelings about that you want to add to? You think I'm wrong?
No, I don't disagree. I think that, everybody is expecting to see sales right now just because the environment has moved into, everything, everybody's offering some sort of discount. Just don't do it without a reason. Have a sale, but have a story with the sale and have it be something that's helping you build the brand. Don't have it be something that's just tearing it down. So if you're doing a sale on skincare right now, have it be tied into ideas around self-care, or we know that you're at home and we want to give you an opportunity to engage with the brand for the first time if you haven't. Think about doing it in a way, especially if there's ways that maybe you can get people to try more of your product catalog by doing discounted bundles or things like that to move them between products. It's a good way to just tactically kind of move them through your product catalog rather than just kind of have those bestsellers go on a deep discount in a way that's going to be detrimental in the future.
That's great. EDU question from Jamie. Have I seen my EDU partners move into that higher purpose category? Usually these things are very outcomes and value oriented. So I haven't, but I want to be honest about that. It's because our school clients are doing pretty well. We do have some clients that we have some clients that are not going to be able to transition well to online. We have clients where I don't want to give their business away, but where you're fixing a big thing that you can't do online. You wouldn't want to be with working with these people later in their careers if they had never sampled the actual object and felt the product. But most of our clients have not had to make that shift into a higher purpose yet, because education is already an aspirational purchase. So the answer is we have not seen our EDU partners move into a higher purpose category yet, because the demand has not, because they're in a space of increasing demand and more impressions, and they don't have to do the shifting right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens to small private liberal arts schools 6 months from now when people have PTSD about going outside. But right now the answer, Jamie, is no. Our EDU partners have not moved into higher purpose category. Katie, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I would just say that probably most EDU actually lives in the higher purpose space, because we are talking about something that, you know, even the headline I just saw on the Culinary Institute that you showed was talking about connecting food with kind of like a deeper meaning and deeper purpose. So I think that
they're already there.
Sometimes education really is about that level of enrichment that that brands have had to kind of step towards. So I think it's intrinsically there, and it might be that you start messaging it a little bit more right now.
Right. Every school's unique. I mean, some schools, anyway, we can talk more about that offline. Any B2B device, Amy asks, priorities change in sales, new businesses may no longer be at the forefront. So, Amy, without knowing what your business is and without knowing who you're selling to, the reality is that we are in a new environment. We're about to share a case study with and so I can talk a little bit about it. We're about to share a case study with our client, Taste Coffee Roasters. Their whole business, they have Keurig K-Cups.
I love Taste. I love that.
Yeah, that's right. We know each other through Taste.
I'm a customer.
So they sell Keurig compatible coffee cups, and they are compostable. So you should buy them. They're awesome, and they're nice people. So their whole business, since they've been building up, has been around trying to get hotels and small businesses like Katie and mine. We know each other through Taste, actually, to buy. So they have a whole sales process that's around reaching out to businesses that have under 100 people, because at that point the CEO is involved in buying the coffee, and saying, do you want to buy our coffee? That's not happening right now. I am not buying coffee for my office. Hotels are not buying coffee for their office. It's not happening. So what they've done is they've addressed this new reality by pivoting sharply to direct to consumer. And they've reached out, and I don't want to give their metrics away. We are going to publish the case study, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. They have decided to pivot directly to direct to consumer, because that's their only alternative, right? Like, that is the reality they're in. And so now they have to do a higher volume game, a lower cost per average order, right? I'm not going to buy as much coffee at home as I would at the office. But my B2B advice, without knowing your specific situation, Amy, is that you have to be frank with yourself about what the new environment is and pivot to wherever the sales are. Katie, did you have anything to add to that?
We don't do too much B2B, but I will say that I'm always involved in our sales process, and the conversations that I'm having right now in those kinds of moments, like, I'm having the most human, real conversations with strangers over the phone, over webcam, that I've ever had in my life. And I do think that there is, you know, we're moving away from, you know, just the hard sell to potentially creating better relationships. So I do think that it's important to kind of, even if you aren't able to do a hard sell right now, just think about this as relationship building and showing up as a human kind of in all of those interactions.
That's exactly right. We have a big prospect we're working on with right now, and I won't tell who it is, but it's a logical impossibility for them to sign a contract with us right now. So without going into who they are, and that's okay. I know that. We're still having conversations with them about how their lives are. Another Katie, spelled differently, asked, do you think there's feasibility and value in having something subscription-based in the sports nutrition category? Yes, Katie. Yes, I think there's a huge value and feasibility in having subscription-based in the sports nutrition category. I think that you are without knowing your business and what you're exactly selling, that is a growth category. People want to be healthier. I know that this is true. We have data we can share on it from Google. I showed you our slides from Mason Interactive slides were all D2C. I could break that down by apparel or jewelry or accessories or food. Anything edible right now, edible, like old-fashioned edible, like food, and it is surging right now. People want to have prepackaged goods at home. Yes, I think there's great value in having a subscription-based sports nutrition product out there right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, wellness is going to be one of the strongest. It was one of the strongest categories coming into this. It's going to be one of the strongest categories coming out. I think you might have to pivot your messaging a little bit think about what people are looking for right now. It might not be, the same hardcore workout. It might be people who are looking for ways to be healthier at home. So just, think tactically about how you might change your messaging, just to address how people are thinking about personal wellness and nutrition right now. But I definitely think that, I was just with my extended family having a conversation about what subscription deliveries were really reliable to get things into our homes. And so I think that that's a really, for better or worse, people are thinking about how can I make sure that the things that I expect to have will come to me on a schedule I can rely on, for sure.
Great. I want to make sure we get to some more. I have I have to stop right now, but I want to make sure we move along. Chris Thomas, what is the greatest risk to a brand that goes dark right now? Chris, I think the answer is in the question. It's going dark. Without knowing your product, without knowing what your product is, without knowing what your economic situation is, I just don't think you should go dark. I think you should be providing value to community. I think you should be speaking openly and honestly about your challenges. And I think you should be able to say to people, the reality is we're going to come out of this. We can disagree over whether it's going to be 3 weeks or 8 weeks, right? But we're 9 weeks, whatever it is. We're going to come out of this, and people are going to go back to work, and people are going to get back in society. And if you're not staying in front of people now, the risk to your brand is that they will remember your competitor in 8 weeks and we're out of this, and not you. Katie, you have anything to add to that?
I just completely agree with everything you said.
Okay. Georgia asked again about investing in SEO now. Are there better prices for startups? I don't want to talk about prices. I want to keep this informational. I'll tell you what we are doing at Mace Interactive. We have ramped up our SEO practices. We are pushing out more content than ever before because we are eating our own dog food. We're following our own medicine. We are trying as earnestly as we can. The sales team is not focused on going out and having meetings with people because that's not happening. The sales team is focused on creating engaging, realistic content that actually tells a good story of what we're doing for our clients. So I think you should always be investing in SEO. Nash, I think this is a great question for Katie. Regarding staying in front of the consumer, we have a Facebook group. Is it insensitive to post something every day, trying to create a happy balance of sales and encouragement? Katie, I think you're better to answer that one than I am.
Oh, first of all, good for you for having a Facebook group. So you've got people who are connecting with the brand and have chosen they want to receive something from you quite often. So it's not insensitive to post something every day. Now, just think about what you're posting. Again, like try to deliver value, show up and say, what can I give? Don't say, what can I get them to do? It's about what we're kind of putting into the world and what we're delivering of value. If you're saying something, every day to the consumer that is giving them something to smile about or giving them a way to kind of navigate the current environment, they're going to be happy to hear that. And they're going to remember that you were the one that delivered that message. And if you're doing that in a way that is not salesy, is not slick, they're going to end up on your website. They're going to end up looking at your products anyway.
Yeah. John, should a brand be talking about how they're protecting their staff while fulfilling their orders? Yeah, I don't think it should be the main message, but yeah, I think every brand we've seen has already sent out an email saying these are the steps we're taking.
And there's some warm and fuzzies to be had there and how you're taking care of your team. People will feel good about interacting with your brand if they feel that they're giving to a company that is taking good care of its employees right now, because we're seeing a lot of companies that aren't doing that, and that's tearing them apart. I think, Everlane was a brand that spent so much time talking about transparency and supply chain, and they just laid off a bunch of people this week in a way that was not well done, and they kind of tore down everything that they've been building across the past couple of years. So you're doing good by your team. Tell that story.
Great. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure we get questions. Jessica's asking recommendations about how to be empathetic with software development. Jessica, I don't want to go over your question. I'm not sure I understand it well enough to answer it. Eliza had a question for you, Katie, if you want to talk about it, but if you don't, I'm going to get to 2 last questions. So I have one. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'm just reading the question. How would you suggest pinpointing a campaign that feels relevant and authentic to the brand and also gives back? I mean, I think it goes back to kind of looking at what's in your DNA, what's an authentic way to communicate, what's a way that you actually can show up and give back that you can withstand as a business, and then how can you showcase that in a way that's going to be visually and emotionally compelling in the messaging.
Katie and I have slightly different viewpoints in this, which is not in any way a problem. If we agreed on everything, we wouldn't be friends as much. So I'm gonna share my screen and add that I thought was fantastic, and I'm really sorry I didn't think about it for our client base in terms of pinpointing it. Share, turn screen share on, my entire screen, share. I love this ad. This is from Suit Supply. I promise I have pants on now. I love this ad. I think this ad is so good. This is just an email ad to their database, and it says, working from home, look good from the waist up. Let's stress the importance of feeling good from the waist up, and let's take care of it. And this isn't a higher purpose, which is where Katie and I diverge a little bit. To me, this is just honest, and I know she would agree with the next part too. We're not at cross purposes. This is just honest and sincere engagement with clients, and there's nothing other than something great about it. Like it's just great to say that you're in a fun and functional way, acknowledging what your people, the situation your people are and going ahead of it. So that'd be a campaign I would pinpoint that I think is fantastic. I'm sorry I didn't think of for some of our clients.
Just to be clear, higher purpose can be bringing joy and delight into people's lives, no matter what the situation is. And I think that ad does a great job of that. So, I mean, I think like, you know, and there's probably other ways that they're kind of empowering people as well along the way, but bringing levity to a serious situation is something that is sorely needed right now. So brands that are doing that, I think, are taking advantage in a very smart way.
I think we kind of have to wrap this.
Chelsea, you asked a question about disclosing furloughs and talking about some of the issues with laying people off. I think that's a really great question. I think that, you know, one of the things that we're seeing is that brands like Sephora and Everlane that are doing that, and they're letting the narrative be written by somebody else, are really getting penalized by that. So if things are happening behind the scenes that are going to come out, it's good to try to be as transparent as possible. First, be transparent to your team, because that's who you really owe that messaging to. Like really, really think about how you can lay people off in a way, or furlough them in a way that's super humane and considering them as humans and showing up for them, and then communicate that to your customers. But make sure that you take care of those people first. And if you do that right, then the story that gets written about you and the story that you can write about what you're doing can be one that at least is meeting people honestly and transparently in a way that you'll be proud of.
That's a great answer, Katie. So we'll follow up. Thank you so much. I'm going to end this. It's been a real pleasure. I do a lot of these, and this is one of the better ones, and it's more informative. And I think it's better because Katie's here. Katie, I always enjoy talking with you, and I think we work well together. And I sincerely appreciate your time. And we'll grab a drink at some point in the next couple of months.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much.
I'm ending. Bye, everyone.